Hey, AfterBuzzers, ever want to win $50,000? Well, there's a show out there by Kevin Hart that lets you do just that. However, you got to get through an obstacle course. That's right, we're talking TKO's Episode 1 of Season 1. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's TKO time. We got Meagan and Michael, and I'm Phil. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So much to discuss, so much to go. It's our first episode of this series ever, so we're going to talk a lot about the format and the contestants and so forth. And we've got a little bit of news and gossip for you, lots to get through. But I want to hear from you guys. A, introduce yourself, and B, give me your overall thoughts of this brand new series on CBS. Let's start with you, Meagan.
Hi, my name is Meagan Gitelman. I felt like I was really taken back to high school watching it. I liked how they described that it was a dodgeball meets obstacle course game, because I felt like everyone kind of went back into that competitive mindset, and there were definitely the different types of personalities. It just felt like everyone went back to high school.
Mm-hmm. And what about you?
Speaking of high school, I thought that it brought me back to high school a little bit with American Gladiators feel to it. By the way, I'm Michael Rippe. It's good to see you guys. Kevin Hart as a host, interesting. Adds a little comedy to it. I think that they need to maybe loosen up on the challenge, make it a little easier, right?
Maybe. I mean,
or they need better competitors, one or the other.
One or the other. I feel like it's a little bit tough in terms of, because the course is already set.
Yeah.
So at that point, how do you kind of adjust it? I'm not sure. In fact, you know what? Let's talk about the obstacle course in general. With this first episode, we're sort of exposed to the rules. They're competing for $50,000. There's 4 zones overall, and if you get through the zones, the fastest time wins, sort of deal. And there's various levels. You still get money even if you don't come in first, but the top person gets to go on into the larger challenge. So there's a lot of layers here. Mm-hmm. But from your overall sort of opinion, which zone was the toughest?
I think, was it the second one where they were jumping onto the platforms that were wobbling? I think that was the second zone.
Throwing frisbees?
Yeah.
That was the second zone, right?
Yeah.
I believe.
You got shooting the balls in zone 1, throwing frisbees zone 2, spike balls.
Spike balls.
Zone
that was
3,
a hard one for everyone.
And then slammer in zone 4.
Indeed. I feel, it's tough to say there was an easy one, because 3 contestants total
yeah.
KO'd as
right. So you get to get knocked down once, and that's a KO. But then if you get knocked down again, it's a TKO. And it seemed like on a couple of them, none of them could get through it. They all got TKO'd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fourth one, just by the way, and we'll break it down, but the way it went seemed like the hardest. I don't know. It's fun watching these people on TV, and you would think oh, come on, you're laughing at them, but it must be pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Especially speaking of the fourth one being the most difficult. If it is the most difficult, you're also the most tired by the time you get there, so it's even more difficult.
Absolutely.
Right? The amount of time it takes. And then they have the whole component of a time capsule where you could get time back, but didn't really come into play in the first episode.
What's interesting, I wish we had, we could see the behind-the-scenes curtain of this, because oftentimes when they build these challenges, you kind of test out these obstacle courses. Mm-hmm. So I want to know who was testing out this obstacle course. Were Olympians?
Maybe the actual gladiators that I was talking about from American Gladiators.
Could be, right?
Because otherwise, it seemed like everybody was really struggling. And even Barry, he struggled, and he ended up being the winner.
Absolutely. So speaking of that, let's talk about our contestants. We have 5 contestants. There's Barry. He's 27. He's a teacher in North Carolina. We have Tracy, 38. She's a nurse. She wants to do this for her kids. We got George from Chicago. He's a cop. And we got Melanie from Texas. She's a cheerleader. And Geronimo, she's a behavior specialist from Boston, 28. From this group of 5, just initial reactions. We obviously know the results, but just by that description alone, who did you think was going to at least be competitive enough?
Definitely George, just because he's a police officer and he's used to working in those high-stress situations, and it seems like he had a lot of confidence. He really had a grasp on the situation and a plan.
I thought George for sure because of the police officer aspect. I thought Barry when he showed us that cool handshake that he did, and he taught Kevin Hart that. But I also thought Melanie, as a cheerleader and a mom, I thought she was going to do pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely put Melanie somewhere up there just because of her athleticism. Barry, I wasn't expecting simply because he was a teacher, but yeah, I too am on the George bandwagon where I was like, okay, George got this. And he seemed so confident. He laid out a strategy, and
George did not have that.
No.
did not deliver.
Went out the window.
George did not get that.
It's one of the things that we sort of before we came in, that you and I, Michael, were talking about. They just progressively got bad. You start out with Barry, who TKOs in the last 2 zones of the 4 zones. And then Tracy, you're like, okay, no offense to Tracy, you kind of think she's going to do bad. And then, unfortunately, yeah, I think because we all put so much stock into George, the fact that he's 3rd, and then his time was even more increased than Tracy.
Yeah.
Watching it, did you guys think that they were going to get better? Because I expected it to get better. I'm like, oh, they must be saving better contestants as I see, like, George going and not getting it, and then Melanie coming. I'm expecting like someone to do better and better, but it just got progressively worse.
It did, and I thought you would certainly kind of pick up little bits here and there and be like, okay, I'm gonna do that, or I'm not gonna do that based on what somebody else did. No one seemed to have that strategy.
Yeah. Well, my theory is I don't think the other competitors were as willing to fight off Barry because they didn't think they needed to because he was first. And so as more people went along and as they did more like poorly than he did, they fought harder, so they made it harder for the next person.
Okay. I like the idea though that the contestants, even when you're not up, you're still part of it.
Yeah.
So everyone's involved. I thought that's a cool component to the whole game in general. So just because you're not the one actually doing the course, you're still part of the actual competition by trying to get them off their game. Which, interestingly enough, I'm not sure they even needed people to be like throwing extra elements at the obstacle course, because it seemed like the obstacle course alone was very difficult.
Well, we did talk about Tracy before we got in. The fact that she was a sharpshooter with that disc.
Yeah.
She was dangerous.
She was angry and riled up and
she was
ready
just
to go.
letting loose, throwing them.
Yeah.
Like it was like Kevin Hart was like, "Whoa," worried.
Yeah, I mean, no one else really stood out as far as being that good at those things. As you mentioned, the course in itself was tough, but Tracy was a standout as far as getting people, I thought.
She was also a standout in my notes because when I watched right after she went, I actually wrote to myself that she might be the worst competitor ever, which quickly changed about 5 minutes later when she was already doing better than George and the rest. But she was incredible at throwing those discs. If anybody needs like an ultimate frisbee player, she probably is the one you should call.
Absolutely, I think that's a good. Yeah, like I said, I mean they just got so progressively worse, which got me to thinking. At a certain point, I don't know if it's allowed, but just TKO right off the bat, like 10 seconds, double TKO, do the course in like, let's say 30 seconds. That's 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Call it a day.
Well, surprisingly, Melanie was the last one to go, I believe.
Second to last.
Second to last, right. She ends up getting last place, but if she would have used your strategy, she would have probably gotten second place.
Yeah, I mean...
Because the times were very varied. It wasn't even close.
The thing with Melanie, like, you cheered for her, and she got so close each round, but because she took up so much time trying, just don't try.
It kind of goes against the idea of the game, but it's if you want the money.
Well, she's also the one who took the 90-second timer. That's just like, all right, screw it. I'm just gonna take it.
Right.
One way or the
Kevin's
other.
like, I'll take that. I don't think we're gonna use that. That doesn't count.
I think she should get it just for the simple fact that she thought about doing it. No one else did.
It's creative.
She could have very easily not done it, as did anybody else. But I gotta say, Geronimo was the surprise of the night, at least for me. How did you guys feel about her?
Jessie
Geronimo.
Geronimo,
Yeah.
Yeah, I like her last name better. I'm just going to keep calling her Geronimo.
For me, it was the same thing with George. She seemed really cocky in the beginning, so I thought, oh, she's not going to do that well. But she was just as feisty out there as she was when she was yelling at the other competitors.
speaking of yelling at the other competitors too, I actually liked how they were all kind of a little bit of trash talk when someone was on the obstacle course, like taking kind of seriously. Barry was definitely into it. He wanted to win the money. But yeah, Jessie was pretty good in the middle there. She TKO'd at the start in the first one, but then she made it through the second one. I think she's the only one that made it through the second zone.
Barry did too, but she was the only one for zone 3.
Okay, so she made it through 3. She was the only one, which is impressive, but then she couldn't make it through 4, and then her time was, second place worthy?
But the fact that I think as far as zone 4 is concerned, she made it twice across the first part.
Yeah.
I think what messed her up was the 90-second timer. If you just didn't focus on that, I think she could have very easily knocked it out.
I liked her strategy too, how she kind of like, I think she was baiting Barry into to using, or like she ran at the perfect time. It was a good strategy, but then she was caught in the middle.
Yeah.
And then she couldn't finish.
Yeah, she was staring him down, but she was also watching very carefully for when he was going to throw those dodgeballs at her.
Yeah, it's interesting because we don't really get a lot of sort of reactions. We do get a little bit because Kevin Hart does interview them, but one of the things I'm interested to see if they were able to go twice to see if any of them would become better at the obstacle course or just no, it has no relevance. They would just been equally as bad.
I hope they would get better. I hope that next week's contestants and the next episode and the episodes to go are better, because otherwise the game is going to be pretty mundane and not really going to be a good show.
Well, Meagan,
they need people to make it.
You were laughing at every time, just people. The fact that we went 3 rounds where people were TKing. Oh, by the end, you're just laughing your ass off.
That was hilarious.
So it depends, like what the show's trying to be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think it's funny when people TKO, but when every single, like, the entire obstacle course is a TKO, it's kind of, well, then we need someone to do it.
Yeah.
Or they need casting to pick better contestants.
Well, what I'm worried about, like for moving into future episodes, is the fact that each contestant is like kind of like a standalone project, right? It's not like they get the benefit of seeing these guys and now being like, okay, I know how to do it. They only have their group to gauge that part of it. So I don't, lots to discuss there.
Well, when you're looking at the course, what do you think you would be best at? Which zone? And what about you guys out there? Like, which zone were you like, oh, I could do this? Was there one where you're like, I got this?
I think the first and third, I think I could actually be pretty decent at because it's balance. The first one in particular, I think I could have done okay at.
Yeah.
The last one, when it comes to like, it's like, the log in the river scenario, I don't think I could have gotten that one.
Yeah. I think for me, the second round with the ball pit, because there wasn't any jumping and there was a lot to grab onto, so you could just... I would probably take my time if someone was throwing stuff at me and just cling on for dear life and hope for the best.
I think the second one is the best one for me, too.
Yeah.
But what about if you were on the opposite side where you were throwing the things? Which would you be best at? Or, like, trying to knock someone off?
I think I don't know. I don't know if I'd be the best as far as knocking someone off, but as far as hitting someone, I think the first zone with just the dodgeballs and the gun that shoots them at 60 miles an hour, I think I could do some damage and hit, get some hits.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think the spike balls, because they're pretty big, and if you have, like, decent aim, you're probably going to hit them somewhere.
The spike balls, yeah. I definitely couldn't throw frisbees like Tracy.
Yeah.
But I think I could do the shooting the balls, like you said on the first one.
Yeah. And then it's tough as far as the fourth zone in terms of the obstacles, only because at that point it's irrelevant. Like, just everyone's knocking themselves off the first go around at it. So, anyway, Barry, good old Barry. He's first. He went first, and he ends up being first.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets to come back and do it again. We'll actually find out if he gets better at it. Although, is the final competition for $100,000? Is it the same course or a different course? Do we know?
I think it's from just seeing. We'll talk about the preview for next week in greater length, but seeing just in general, it's got to be the same course. Like, okay. I think it just takes too much money to have to reinvent a course every single time.
Okay,
is my guess, but I could be completely wrong.
I feel like there's still some unknowns in the first episode from watching. It wasn't totally,
a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, it's not totally clear everything that's happening.
Exactly. I mean, we're still a little unclear even how many episodes are going. Like, is it 5 episodes of this, and then the 6th episode is kind of the top 5 competitors, or is it a 10-episode season where the first 9 happen in this way, and the top 5 from those 9,
Yeah.
it's already confusing just to say.
Yeah, it's unclear. And then based on your time, like how does if you have the best overall time of the entire season, does that matter? Does that just get you like top seed in the runoff? I don't know. I wish they would give us a little bit more explanation there.
Yeah, here's the thing. That would suck if you're going into, like, you're the number 1 seeded guy going into the final, and then you lose by, let's say, a minute or something like that. You're like, but my time,
I think it should almost be like a cumulative effect, maybe.
Yeah.
Like where your first round and then the final round goes together. So it's like an overall time, maybe. I don't know.
That could be.
Right? Because I think you should be rewarded. Like, if you have the really hard competition, but you win because your other contestants are good, but you still win with a really fast time, I think you should be extra rewarded for that.
Yeah, that's a good point and a question we can't answer.
So the CBS execs that are watching, because they obviously are, should tell us.
Indeed. Or Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart, too, yeah.
Call us.
Call us, come in, join us.
All right. Well, we've got some news and gossip to go over with you guys. So why don't we get into that? Here's some news and gossip.
AfterBuzz TV News.
So not a lot of news. The episode premiered on Wednesday, yesterday for us. The show received about 4 million viewers, which not bad, but not great. So CBS was hoping for a little bit more. We'll see kind of where the show ends up going. I mean, granted, it's July, so everyone's out on vacation and things like that. But this is also great summer. Just watch it, not with your family type of movie.
They also put it in right after Big Brother, and they promoted it pretty aggressively. There was a lot of promotion for it, so maybe it'll pick up.
We'll see. But that's all we got as far as news and gossip. So without further ado, let's go into predictions because it ties nicely along with Big Brother.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
All right, so I am not a Big Brother fan, but next week we get Tyler Crispin, and you're a Big Brother fan, so what does that mean for the show?
Yeah, so Tyler is a contestant on this season's Big Brother Season 20, going on right now on CBS, and he's actually doing fairly well. Right now, he's been probably one of the top players in the game. Who knows how he'll finish, but he's going to be on next week's episode 2 of Total Knockout, competing. So based on the way he's done Big Brother so far, you would imagine he'll be a good contestant for TKO. It's unclear if he is competing for the actual money or just maybe a new variable to the game next week in the episode. But he's a good character in Big Brother. I'm sure he'll be a good character in TKO.
Yeah. I mean, his social game's been really strong on Big Brother, but as far as his physical competitions, I don't think he's one of the top ones. Maybe like top 30%, but definitely not one of the number ones. So it'll be interesting how he can do without alliances here.
It will be interesting, and based on what we saw from the first episode of TKO, and it might not matter if you are physically in shape, a police officer or not, how you perform in TKO. So it'll be interesting to see. But he'll definitely add an element to the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me guys ask you this as sort of impromptu question. As far as, should they have gone athletes for this since it is strictly a physical competition? Whereas you look at perhaps something like Big Brother, Survivor, another CBS show, if you're not, let's say, the most physically fit person for those competitions, there's a mental aspect to it. And obviously this has no mental aspect apart from, trash talking, but that doesn't really get you far, it doesn't seem like.
Well, I will say the one mental part I did see was Melanie got hit a few times and she took the hits and stayed on. Eventually she fell off, but I don't know.
I think there's a bit of a mental element to it because George said he couldn't control his stress, and that's why it just shot through the roof and he let go of all his strategy. But I think Jessie did so well because she is a behavioral specialist and she was able to kind of control that.
Hopefully. I'm just nervous for the Chicago Police Department. If George can't control his emotions or his stress level on this.
I mean, I think they have bigger worries. George also talked about how he got chased around his police car by a guy on PCP. And he's the police officer being chased.
I just wanted to give him a hug. Yeah. It was harmless.
Debatable.
But wait, before we're done, what about, speaking of gossip, what about when they talked about Tracy's husband in the crowd and they showed they showed his name was Furious. Do we believe his name is Furious or do we think that he was furious?
Either way, I've never seen it before because,
Yeah.
the name Furious, or at least I presume is his name, was so big.
He's right.
Underneath Tracy's husband.
Yes. It was one of those of like, it caught my attention immediately. I think it caught yours. I'm sure it caught others. So it's just very unclear to me because if his name is Furious, that's cool. I just never met a Furious before.
Yeah, it just seemed like you had to.
It was very odd.
You had to kind of do a double take way, like, because the problem is he also had a furious look on his face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why it was very like I wasn't sure what was happening. Was it a joke or not a joke?
I don't
A
think
lot of
it was.
unknowns.
I doubt if it was a joke. I'm not 100% sure. What do you guys think of, speaking of which, another impromptu sort of question, Kevin Hart's hosting?
I really like hearing his banter with the other competitors when they're trying to throw the other people off.
I think it left a little bit to be desired in the first episode, but I think he's probably just getting his feet wet, trying to figure out where to come in. Plus, I don't think that they expected no one to really be able to do any of the game or the course, and so he was kind of just like the entire time it was the same kind of reaction, like, oh, you fell off, oh, you didn't make it, oh, get out of the ball pit, you're sinking. So I think he's a good host in general, and it'll be better as the season goes along. I think as he starts finding people that actually get it done, because it's hard when the same response is needed, where he's like, oh, you didn't do it, but good job, nice try.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, I give him a lot of credit because sometimes it is tough for, he's a comedian / actor, so to come in and do this, and, most times hosts don't have to commentate, like, I'm thinking of, like, let's say MTV's Challenge. TJ, right? That's his name. He's not commentating as the competition is going on. You're just watching the competition.
Yep.
And he's literally adding to it.
Yeah, and they tell you the times, 10 minutes, 15 minutes for some of the contestants. You could see during the show that part of it was them basically being on Kevin, giving, he's giving his reaction. He's on the whole time. So, I think it was a tough first episode in general, just getting his feet wet, but he's a great host to get the crowd into it. And it was cool. I mean, he did the little handshake with Barry, so you could tell that he's got the ability to host.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with his predictions too, because when someone was about to do something and he knew they were gonna fall, he called them out, and he almost always got it, except with Jessie.
Yeah, Jessie she was the surprise. She was indeed. All right, any final thoughts before we head on out?
I hope that someone makes it next week, like the whole course, so we could see how it's done.
Are we taking bets on whether Tyler actually makes all of them?
Oh, he's getting a TKO.
He's getting a TKO?
Yeah. He's not going to make all of them.
No.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Where can people interact with you guys offline?
You can follow me on Twitter at Meagan_Gitelman, MEAGAN, GITELMAN.
And I'm Michael Rippe, and you can follow me on social media at Mike Rips, MIKERIPS.
And I'm at Phil Svitek. Thank you guys for joining us. As we mentioned earlier, please do comment. Let us know what you thought of the episode. Let us know what you thought of the competitions and all the things we discussed. Certainly commentate on it. Because after all, that's what we enjoy. We love the community. We love the spirit. And we love reading your guys' comments. We'll see you guys next week for another TK Go.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.